Is it working? Yo, what's up, guys? So, this live stream was kind of just random. I was reading a bunch of comments I had yesterday and in the past couple weeks, and it seemed this was a big topic. So, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to cover it. So, for today's live stream, I'm talking about looks, money, and status, and let's go ahead and crack into it. I'm going to try and keep this one relatively short. All right, so public service announcement. Looks, money, and status do matter. Looks matter for sure. Money matters 100%. Like with looks, I mean, it just shows you have pretty good genetics. With money, it shows you have resources and that you can take care of yourself. And status helps. Like in a caveman tribe, the highest status guy was the one that had the resources, and he also had the choice of women. So, of course, they do matter. But I want to give you guys a different lens besides just like, oh, good looking, a lot of money, and status. But the true lens is actually value. It's the scale that I use whenever it comes to deciding which girls and which guys I want to let in my life. Like how much value do they actually offer? So yeah, all that stuff matters, but the community makes it out to be like, oh, if you're good looking, if you're rich, and if you have high status, then like you don't have any dating problems at all. And I think that's hilarious because I know a lot of good looking dudes, and I know a lot of guys that had money back in Kentucky, and even a lot of guys with quote unquote status that still weren't getting laid as much as I was. In fact, one of my friends whose business was doing pretty well barely got laid, to be honest. And I mean, his money didn't help him at all, and his status didn't help him at all. So let's view everything through the lens of value. So, okay, before I go on with it, some of you guys might be thinking, all right, if everything matters, then what's the point of learning game? What's the point of going through this journey? Like I'm broke, I'm black, I'm Indian, I'm just a minority. Like what's the point? Girls aren't gonna like me. I'm not good looking. I'm ugly. Should I just go ahead and quit game? And I always think it's funny when people bring stuff up like that because no, like, what's the alternative? Oh, picture the short guys that play in the NBA, like Isaiah Thomas. Uh, his height is around 5'8", 5'9". You think whenever he was playing, he's like, oh, like I'm short, I'm not as tall as the other guys, fuck it, what's the point, should I just quit? Nah, he just kept going hard, he kept playing, and now he's playing on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he's doing amazing. And if you guys follow basketball at all, he was doing very well at the Celtics, despite all his disadvantages in the NBA. And the NBA is a lot different than game, for sure. Like, it's way more competitive, and that stuff actually matters, but there's still guys who are outliers that are crushing it as well. But with game, it's human to human interaction, so there's not necessarily outliers in that regard. So to answer the question, like, what's the point? The point is this journey will get you the girls that you want as long as you give it enough time and you put in the work to truly change yourself. And should you quit? I mean, what's the choice? You quit and you go back to being a chode? You quit and you go back to still not having any girls? Like, between choosing something, an option that gives me the potential to have what I want versus something that just completely kills that potential, such as quitting, it's a very obvious choice. I'm going to stick with it. So even if you guys are broke, even if you guys are a minority like me, even if you guys are ugly, like, it doesn't matter at all. That's just external standards set on you by society that tells you you can't get girls, and you guys are buying into that. All right, so the truth is that all three do matter, but not as much as people circle jerk them out to be. I think it's hilarious whenever there's like my rejections compilations, and then people are giving me feedback like, oh, like you should try this, maybe try an indirect opener, try this XYZ. It's because your game wasn't on point that game. Maybe you're out of state. Blah blah blah. They're giving me all this feedback on my game, and then all of a sudden I close a girl or I have a day game pull, and they're like, oh, it's because you're tall, it's because you're good looking, it's because XYZ. And I'm like, motherfucker, like, did you just tell, like, I was just as tall in the last video, I was just as good looking in the last video. That stuff obviously didn't change, so what actually changed? And what actually changed was the value that I was bringing to the interaction, and also the kind of guy that I am. Like, if you go back and you watch the earlier videos in the 30-day series, and then you watch the newest infield, you're going to see a complete difference. Mostly in my vibe, how I am, how I carry myself, and a lot of that is through the hard work that I put in through game. Like, I became a more attractive man by going out a lot and getting references, and also getting success, and also going through failure and just learning and progressing as a man. So earlier on, I wasn't necessarily getting laid as much as I would like to, and now it almost seems like it's at will. Okay, so another truth: if you're a chode, you have looks, money, and status, you will have girls choosing you. Completely. I witnessed it. I've seen my friends get girlfriends who just like literally did everything for them. And then whenever I ask them like, why are you dating him? They're like, oh, because he's good looking. But oftentimes those relationships weren't on the guy's terms. The girl would be the one running everything. Oh, we're going on this date. And what the relationship actually felt like was the girl with her male toy. She's like, oh, like, hey, my girlfriends, I've got a good looking guy, like, look at him, and look, like, he's doing everything that I want him to do, like, I got this guy under control. That was more the vibe of the relationships, rather than like, oh, like, this is a guy, or this is like the man that I'm with, or like, I'm this guy's girl. So those relationships were almost never on their terms. I actually had some of the girls cheat on my friends, just a bunch of like crazy stuff that nobody should actually go through. And part of that was because they weren't really on the terms. The girls were the ones choosing everything. So yeah, if you're a chode and you're a good looking chode, you're gonna have more success than a bad looking chode, or like than an ugly chode. If you're a rich chode, sure, you're gonna have more success than a broke chode. But regardless, let's look at the last bullet. Well, before I get into that, okay, so if you're good looking and you're a chode, and you have high status, and you have like, what was the other one? A bunch of money, but you're still not like the guy in control, or like the guy that's actually bringing more value than just that, you're still living in scarcity. It's just like very masked. Like, guys with no girls will look at you and be like, oh my god, like, that guy's got a ton of girls. But here's an analogy that I came up with. All right, so someone with $1,000 in their pocket, let's say you just whip out $1,000 and you're walking down the street, and a homeless guy sees that. He's gonna think you're rich, right? But then if a millionaire looks at you, or looks at like the homeless guy, what's he actually going to think? He's going to be like, oh, that guy has a little bit more money than the homeless dude, but it's still not as much money as he has. And that's the viewpoint that I have. Like, I'll see good looking guys, like even my friends back home, or even like my friends here, like, I'll see good looking guys getting girls, getting attraction from girls, and I just look at him like, oh, like, hell yeah, he finally got a girl. Like, oh, like, he slept with 3 or 4 girls this year. And I'm just thinking like, okay, I just slept with 4 girls this week. So I mean, obviously I'm not as good looking as him. I don't necessarily have as much money as him. And status, I mean, I'm just a random ass dude in a bar or in a nightclub. There's almost no status at that point. So that's the viewpoint that I look at it. So a lot of guys in the community, they're not getting girls, so they might see a guy who's rich, or a guy who's good looking, or a guy who has like status and environment, like the Denny's manager. He has a ton of status at Denny's, and he might end up banging the hot waitress, and they're like, oh, like, it's just because he has high status, like, the only way to get girls is through having high status. And everyone jumps to these weird conclusions like, oh, if you're not good looking, you can't get girls. If you don't have a ton of fucking money, you can't get girls. And if you don't have a bunch of high status, you can't get girls. And I think that's fucking hilarious, because you can get girls despite all of that. I mean, that stuff for sure helps. I'm not going to downplay it at all and be like, oh, like, none of that matters. No, it helps, and you should always be working towards achieving that, because you're just like sprinkling the icing on top. You're just adding extra to like however attractive you are. That's why over time I'm getting more groomed. I'm like getting more in touch with the fashion because I want to have a better look. I want to maximize that as much as possible. Like I can control stuff like that. So I want to maximize it. And I also want to make more money for myself so I can have more resources to travel and do the cool stuff that I want to do. And in terms of status, like I want to put myself in the best environments possible. That way it's just like it's more effortless. But the baseline, the foundation that I'm building on is I'm already a cool ass fucking guy and I'm already a guy that girls want to fuck. Like I'm a masculine dude. I go after what I want. So that's my foundation. My foundation isn't just built on looks, money, or status. That would be a horrible foundation. It's not sturdy because you get old and you're not as good looking. All right, you lose your money, you're not as fucking good looking. Maybe you get fired from your high status job or maybe you get banned from the high status environment and bam, your status is fucking gone. So all of that isn't necessarily 100% in your control, whereas your actual behaviors are in your control. So I would focus more on that. All right, so what actually matters, and that's just being a high value male. And most of that is through your subcommunications and behavior. So, talking about high value, it's almost kind of a circle jerk in the community as well. But I'm gonna give you guys some examples of what real value actually is, and that is like masculine polarity, which is in terms just freedom. Like girls crave masculinity. Girls are very, very feminine. They want to be very feminine. They want to submit to a masculine guy, but most guys take the role of the feminine one in the relationship. Like if you watch TV or even if you see modern day couples, the girl is the one running the show. She's like, oh, like we're going here. And the guy's like, oh, like I can't do anything to piss off Sally. I can't do anything to piss off Sandy or whatever, whatever the fuck her name is. And the guy is the one always like in reaction to the girl. They're always doing stuff for the girl. I'm not saying this is like every couple. No, that'd be crazy. But I'm saying like it's a trend that you see. Like you'll see girls in the nightclubs taking the guys by the hand and leading them around the venue like they're dogs. Just like, oh, like let's go to the bar, come buy me a drink. Oh, let's go dance. Like you'll witness it a lot. The masculine polarity is just lacking. And whenever girls meet guys like me and my friends that have the masculine polarity, they almost get entirely sucked in. An example of that is my friend rolled up on these two girls in Vegas. One of them was Asian and the other one was white. And he rolls up on the white one, and I end up talking to the Asian one. So I'm just like checking her out, like talking about how fucking hot she is and how much she's turning me on. Just like being full out, just being honest with her because that's how I felt in the moment. I was like, damn, like your body's fucking crazy. So I start playing with her body. I start like pushing her away, just like doing the whole dance. And just like letting her get sucked in. So at a certain point, I don't really feel like talking to her anymore, and I kind of just like want to listen to the music in the venue. So I just stop messing around with her, and I just stand and I start just like looking at the DJ and dancing with the music. Well, she starts hardcore grinding on me, and so I just hug her and start choking her a little bit as we're making out, and she's like super fucking into it. And we end up pulling those girls, and whenever we're in the oh, and this one was actually 40 years old. She was old as fuck. I would make fun of her for that. But whenever we were at the hotel room, we're all just hanging out, and then I just like start talking to her just a little bit one-on-one, a little bit isolated, and she's like, yo, like I have to get away from you. Like I can't control myself around you. Like I really want to fuck you. And I was just thinking like, what the fuck? Like why do I get these responses almost like almost every night, and other guys don't ever get those responses at all, like get those reactions from the girl? And it's because I'm very in tune with my masculine nature and my masculine essence, and that's like bringing a ton of value that girls don't necessarily get these days. So if you don't have looks, if you don't have money, if you don't have any status, you can always bring masculine polarity to your interaction, just like by being the leader, being the man in the interaction, leading the whole interaction, just taking care of everything from the masculine side and just letting her react to you and letting her submit to you. And even masculine polarity, like sometimes I'll be talking to girls and they'll get really fucking mad, like super fucking mad. I kind of have a dickish personality sometimes, so the girls will get super pissed, but I just hold it, and I'm just like, whatever, like, I don't really give a shit. I'm like a rock in a hurricane or whatever. I'm grounded as fuck. And then the girls just get sucked into that. They're like, oh my God, like most guys would start reacting. Most guys would start like being, would just flip and try and start pleasing me at this moment whenever I'm mad, but this guy doesn't give a shit. And then they're like, oh, like I gotta suck his dick. And another form of value is just being in touch with your sexuality. Whenever people are asking like how to be man to woman, that's kind of like a weird wrong frame because you are a man and she's a woman. Like there's nothing really to do. It's more just like you express it. You're like, oh, like I want to make out with her. You make out with her. You're like, oh, like I want to show her my dick. You show her your dick. And you're like, oh, like I want to fucking hug her. You hug her. So it's like being very free to express your sexuality. And that's something that I've been working on a lot in the past couple months is just getting past the whole conditioning, mostly from my religious upbringing, that inhibits your sexuality. So that's another form of value because girls are very sexual beings. I always tell my students, and I talk about this with my friends, is there's two girls that you're going to meet within the same girl. You're going to meet the girl that puts up the front, that she's like, oh, like she's this good girl, like blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to meet her highly sexualized nature, which is like more in tune with her femininity, because girls are very fucking sexual. Like, I don't know how many girls you guys have been with, but the ones that I'm fucking, they're definitely way more into the sex than I am. They're the ones screaming, they're the ones yelling. Like, I've never been fucking a girl and just moaning the whole time, like, oh, like, no, that's the girl's job. Like, she's way more in tune with that. They express themselves very well sexually if you bring that energy and bring it out of them. And the last form of value, which is one that almost every guy lacks, is standards. I've ditched countless girls, even stunner girls, because they didn't meet my standards. So if you're a guy that's able to subcommunicate, yo, I have standards for the women that I actually have in my life, instead of being a guy that's like, oh, I'll just take any girl. Like, oh, like, yeah, this one, yeah, I'll take that one. Oh, the fatty, yeah, I'll take that one. If you're able to communicate standards to the girl about how you want her to behave, it's very, very attractive. Like, sometimes when I'm out and I'm talking to the girls, they'll say something fucking stupid and I'll be like, yo, shut the fuck up, I don't like that. And then all of a sudden they're just like way more turned on because I'm communicating to them, yo, like I have standards. Like if you want to hang out with me, if you want to get this dick, you're gonna have to act right. And that just like turns them on a lot because it's something that's very fucking rare. Like my whole thing is whenever I go out, I view it like I'm shopping. It's like, oh, like, do I want this girl? Do I want this girl? Do I want that girl? It's like, oh, it's like I'm comparing all these girls, and then maybe I'll choose one, or maybe like, oh, I didn't find anything in this venue that I actually want. So I'm coming at it from a frame of having standards, and that communicates to the girls that, yo, like I value myself. I'm a high value dude. I don't just want whatever the fuck you have. Like your pussy isn't that special. I'm looking for a certain kind of pussy, or maybe I'm looking for a certain kind of girl that night, and maybe you're that girl and maybe you're not, but like I'm the one screening for the girl instead of just like, oh, does she like me? Does this one like me? Oh, does this one like me? Oh, does this one like me? I'm not begging at all to get a girl to like me. And that brings a ton, like that by itself brings a ton more value than any fucking looks you can have, any money you can have, any status you can have, because at that point the girl feels like she won you over. Like if the girl is the one choosing, there's no like, she doesn't feel that good about being with you because she's the one that chose the whole scenario. But whenever she feels chosen and she feels like, oh damn, like this guy wants me, then there's a ton more value in the interaction for her, because she's like, oh, like I actually worked to get this guy, like I actually invested something. Alright, so let's crack into some examples. And the first one I want to start off with is my old college female friends. So I lived in a duplex, me and my friends were upstairs, and at the bottom there were 3 or 4 different girls. And these girls, we would all roll out together, and so we would all roll out together, and these girls would be like, oh, like I want a good looking guy to get today, and they would just talk about the guys in their life, and the only fucking thing they would talk about was how good looking the guy was. Okay, so the whole semester goes by, and I actually meet these guys. Like I meet them out, they're like, the girls are leading them around, they're like buying them drinks, and these girls never hooked up with any of those guys. And they would like make out in the bar, but then at the end of the night they would all go their separate ways. They might go on a date, but then at the end of the night it's just a kiss and then they just go back. And so these girls weren't hooking up with these guys. None of them actually ended up making those guys their boyfriends. And they would literally, I'm talking, it got so motherfucking annoying. It would piss me off. All they would talk about was how good looking the guys were that they were meeting. Like, oh, like, is he good looking? One of the girls, I don't want to say her name, but she would like go out and she'd like come back and tell us like, oh, like I met this guy, he was so good looking. And then the next week I was like, yo, what happened to that guy? And she's like, oh, like he was a fucking weirdo. So the looks clearly didn't help him at all. And my first girlfriend that I ever dated, this was in college. This is another example. She was actually hooking up with this guy who was one of my close friends. Like, I don't really give a shit about that. So they were, like, hooking up frequently. And this guy was, like, really good looking. In our crew, he was probably the best looking. And then one of my other friends was also good looking. And I was either third or fourth in terms of looks. But I was obviously first in terms of dick. Anyway. So she was hooking up with him, and then we started hooking up almost immediately after they stopped hooking up. And then she was like, you're so much fucking cooler than him. She was always like showering me with praise. She's like, you're like the most cool guy I fucking met. Like, I love just how much of a man you are. I'm kind of like putting these words in her mouth because that's not necessarily what she said, but she was just like, I love how you don't like really give a fuck. I love how you're always like, you always have something for us to do, and I feel very comfortable and safe in your presence. She would tell me that stuff all the time. And so she was like more attracted to my behavior than my actual looks. Like, I'm not gonna say I was very well groomed in college. I barely got haircuts. I barely did anything. The only status I had was I was on the fucking track team, which didn't matter because all my friends are on the track team. So it's like, who gives a shit at that point? And money wise, I had no fucking money. Like, I was a college student. I had negative money. So she was more into me for my whole behaviors. And then my second quote unquote girlfriend, I put those ones in quotes because I never officially dated them. We just saw each other for a longer time period than most. This one actually had a boyfriend. I swear to God, this one had a boyfriend, but I met her at a party and I just grabbed her number and I just hit her up. And I knew she had a boyfriend. I just didn't really give a shit. And obviously she didn't give a shit. So I just hit her up. I'm like, yo, like, we're going to hang out at XYZ date. And she's like, all right, cool. So we end up hanging out at her house. So she picks me up. We go to her house. We start a movie. It was Pulp Fiction, actually. The story's kind of fucking funny. So we're watching Pulp Fiction, and it just starts, and I'm just looking at her like, fuck, like, I want to make out with this girl. And I had barely talked to this girl at this point. I'm like, fuck, like, I want to fuck this girl. I'm literally on her bed. I don't want to watch this shit movie. So I just get on top of her and fucking start making out with her. And then 3 minutes later, we're fucking. And then we take a little break to watch the movie, and then we keep fucking. And then I have her suck my dick. And this is the really... if you've ever watched Pulp Fiction, there's a scene where the dude is like either getting his balls chopped off or something weird is like happening to this fat dude. And she's sucking my dick, and I look over at the TV. This dude is getting like his dick cut off, and I'm just like, what the fuck? This is the most random shit in the world. So I actually pointed out to her. But the reason she was attracted to me, and I actually ended up hooking up with this one for a long, long time, but the reason she was super into me was because I was just the guy that was doing whatever he wanted. Like, whenever I met her, I pretty much just grabbed her out of her group and just like, yo, like, who are you? And I was like very fucking dominant with her. Even when I was fucking her, I was like super fucking dominant. And I've seen pictures of her boyfriend. I don't know if they're still dating, but he was like this very rich Arab dude. He was very well groomed, very good looking, and I don't really know his status, but I mean, obviously she was into him enough to be dating him, but she was still sleeping with a guy like me. So at the end of the day, like, attraction comes down to like the value you bring through your behaviors. It doesn't matter how fucking good looking you are, how much money you have, how much status you have, if your behaviors don't match up to that. And one that I actually haven't written down, I put this in my lay reports, but this was in Vegas. There's this girl at a table, I mean, if you're at a table in a nightclub, you have a lot of perceived status, and you're communicating you have money. I didn't necessarily see what the guy looked like because all I saw was his back. But she was like hugging this dude and dancing with this dude at a motherfucking table in a nightclub, right? And I'm just some random ass dude. I just stroll by. I look over. I'm like, I want to fuck that one. So I reach my hand over, grab her hand off the dude's back, pull her. I'm like, yo, fuck that guy. And then I just start making out with her, just instantly start making out with her. And then 10 minutes later, I walk out of the venue, take her to my hotel room, and fuck her. So that guy had a ton of status in that venue. He was communicating that he had a ton of money. I don't know what he looks like, and I had none of that. Like I mean, I guess you can say I'm relatively good looking, but that's an opinion. I wasn't communicating I had money, and I wasn't communicating I had status. I was just like masculine. I was like, fuck, like I want to fuck that one. So boom, I grabbed her and I fucked her, and she was like super in it. She was way more. The dynamic between us was a lot better than the perceived dynamic that I saw between her and the guy with money and status. And then my third quote unquote girlfriend. This is one of my favorite ones. This one actually had two boyfriends, 2 or 3 boyfriends over the span that we were seeing each other. But I met this one Valentine's Day, and I met her through one of my friends, and we were just like all hanging out. We all went to Olive Garden together, so I had 2 girls as my Valentine date. Hell yeah. Still didn't pay for the food like a boss. And so we were all just hanging out at Olive Garden, and then at a certain point, we get isolated, and I'm like, yo, like fucking get undressed or dress in front of me. We were going to a party, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna pick your outfit. So I go to her room, and I'm just like picking clothes, like extra slutty shit for her to wear. And I actually didn't make out with her at that point. She later on brought it up. She's like, why didn't you make out with me then? And I was like, I didn't fucking feel like it. So we go to the party, and in the car, I just put her on my lap. I'm like, yo, you're sitting here. And I sit her on my lap. And we're just like driving, and I just literally turn her head and start making out with her. And then I'm like, yo, like, I'm going to fuck the shit out of you. Or I don't know what I said, but it was something like that. And she like started grinding hard on me. Anyway, we get to the party, and I just ditch her. I meet up with one of my old wingmen. I'm like, dude, let's fucking go crazy. So I just ditch her, and I run around just beasting and rolling on other girls at this party. Anyways, I see her like talking to other dudes. I'm like, hell yeah, like perfect. She's distracted. She can occupy, like they can occupy her. Anyway, she sees me talking to these stunning blonde girls with my friend, and she just comes over and just instantly like fucking starts making out with me. And she's just like, no, like you're fucking mine tonight, like blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh cool, like that's kind of cool. I appreciate that. And then I take her back, and I end up fucking her that night. And I was asking like, yo, like why'd you hook up with me? And she's like, I don't know, you just seemed different. Like you were very like you didn't really give a fuck. You kind of did whatever you want. And she's like, I really liked that. And so we ended up seeing each other a lot. And every time we would hook up, she was like super fucking feminine with me. She was like very awesome. She would drive me around. She would literally just fucking she'd bring me food. She'd just like do a bunch of stuff that was just like helping me out as well. And she was like very feminine. And the reason that happened wasn't because of my looks. It wasn't because of my money. It wasn't because of my status. I mean, I'm not down, like once again, I'm not downplaying this stuff, but the things that really mattered to her, the reason she was really into me was because of the behaviors and what kind of guy I was. Like she never once was like, oh, it's because you're good looking. Nah, not even one time. And I'll quickly go over the last example. This video is running a little long, but this was a girl whose virginity I took, I believe, either my sophomore or junior year. So I actually met her, and we were really good friends at first, like super fucking good friends. And she knew, like, I'm very upfront with the girls in my life. I was like, yo, like, I really like doing this shit. I really love fucking girls. Like I go out a lot, and she would actually like hear all my stories before we started hooking up. So she was like very religious, and I had a very like really good looking male friend, like really fucking good looking, like retarded good looking. And I was like, yo, like you guys would be perfect for each other. You guys should fucking link up and go out. So I hit up my friend. He was down. Showed him her pictures. He's like, hell yeah, hook me up. So put them together. They went on a date, and then she came back, and we were talking, She's like, your friend, he's really, well, what she pretty much told me was your friend's lame and he's not cool. Like he's not a cool dude. He's just some fucking normal ass dude. Like he's not cool. She didn't particularly want to hook up with him at all. She's like, I don't think I'm gonna see him again. And despite his looks, his behavior, and what he was communicating to her was like, yo, like I'm not that kind of guy. She said like he pretty much just did everything for her. He's like pulling the seat out, like doing all the gentlemanly stuff, all the chode shit. And despite him being really good looking, she wasn't attracted to a guy like that. She's like, he's not really that fucking masculine. And so I ended up fucking her a couple weeks later. Don't really want to go into that. All right. So, in conclusion, and why you should focus on learning game rather than like circle jerking looks, money, and fucking status. It's all about choice. Like for me, it's all about fucking choice. Like I was thinking before, whenever I was getting into this, I was like, I just want choice of women. I just want fucking choice. I want the choice of the girls that I hook up with. I don't want to always be reacting like, oh, this girl likes me, now I like her all of a sudden. It's like I've never looked at that girl before, but since she likes me, whatever, this is my girl. Like I never wanted to settle. I just wanted choice. Literally choice. That's why you should fucking focus on learning game, because you get choice. And being an attractive man gives you full abundance. Most of this is communicated through subcommunications and behavior that you'll learn as you go through the process of learning game. Like, there's no point to watch looks, money, status videos. I kind of made this as a circle jerky topic. Like, it's a very circle jerk topic. Like, oh, this guy's good looking, this guy has money, this guy has status. It's like, cool, that's that fucking guy. You should be a selfish person. You should only be focused on yourself in this process. It's like, am I getting the results I fucking want? No. Well, let me fucking fix that. It's not like, who gives a shit if Brad Pitt is getting laid because he has status? That's not my dick. I couldn't give a fuck about that. So you want to focus on like, okay, how can I become the most attractive man possible so I can get choice of the girls that I want? And honestly, it's more fun to learn game than it is to be salty and just look up looks, money, status videos. And your chances of succeeding are a million times fucking higher. Like a million times. Like, what if you're sitting at home and you're watching a YouTube video versus you're out beasting or talking to girls? What are the chances of you getting laid, or what are the chances of you meeting the next girl that becomes your girlfriend? Honestly, even if you're watching this video, the chances of you meeting a girl right now are fucking zero. But the chances of you going when you're out and quote unquote succeeding, whatever that means, they're a million times higher. So fuck it, like stop watching. Even just turn this off and go out. Like go out. Fuck worrying about looks, money, and status. Who gives a shit? Be selfish. Maximize it for yourself, and then figure out, okay, how can I become the most attractive guy so that I can get the fucking girls that I want? That's all that matters. Who gives a shit if some other guy's better looking than me or he has more money than me? His dick is not gonna fuck the girls that I want to fuck. So who cares? And this is a book that I really like. It's free. It's called The Book of Pook. I put a link in the description box for you guys. This guy has all he talks about is masculinity, masculine polarity, sexuality. It's a very, very fucking good book. I love reading random chapters of this book. This was one of the first books I read when I was getting started. Fucking fire. I don't make any money from this. Just want to let you guys know this is a great resource. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I will answer a couple questions if you have them regarding this, but that's only going to be for the next 3 minutes, so type in the chat box. Thank you guys for showing up. First off, this is spontaneous. I was just like, fuck it, I'll do it today. So if you have any questions at all, put them in the chat box. I'm going to stay on for 2 more minutes and just let me fucking know, and I'll answer them. And once again, thank you, and I hope this helps you. Hell yeah, looks like no questions, so I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll be doing live streams every day. I'm just going to randomly pick the topic, and I'll just do them and upload them. So look forward to more of those, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.